So this video is on training OPEX gain. So let's just remember what gain is for the rower specifically. It's a maximal expression in testing. It's a maximal expression of effort in 15 seconds, okay? But let's bring it into an idea around the context of what gain is. Working really hard for a short period of time. Now, what EST means, the T in EST means training. So now we want to think about, well, what are we going to do to try to gain and try to, gain in OPEX gain, meaning how are we going to get there? We're going to train it. We're not going to test it anymore now, right? We're going to test it first, max wattage in 15 seconds. Going to train it for a period of time. I'm going to say 6 to 8 weeks here just to start there. I'll go back to it again. 6 to 8 weeks, retest. It's going to give you an idea. What did you do here that helped, hindered, or changed up your test, okay? So how do we test? 15 seconds, maximal effort. How are we going to get better at this? We're going to train it, right? We're going to have an intervening period of specific kind of training that I'm going to discuss, and that's going to hopefully lead to a retest of a maximal expression for that short period of time, okay? Now, in order for you to not only do gain, like to actually perform it, but in actually to improve it over time, it's not only just doing reps and reps of hard repeats on the rower. That's only one part of it. I would call that like specificity in training. There's other things that you need to do, and we want to ask the question, what's the main limitation for us to express OPEX gain on the rower? It's strength. Different kinds of strength. So we'll break it into 3 areas. Overall strength, and there's some standards I'll give to you based on that. Row strength, which is your technical capabilities and skills, and then your skill of the particular movement itself, right? So how efficient you are with it. When we come into discussing improvements in gain, in order to really come to a conclusion on what works best in order for people to gain, and I gotta stop saying that. In order for people to, get better inside of gain over a period of 6 to 8 weeks, it's probably never gonna be done in testing. We're never gonna have 1,000 subjects that only do row testing, powerful row testing, and see what the score is, and then only 1,000 subjects that only work on strength training, and then we retest. Theoretically, though, it makes sense that everyone who gets stronger over here should result in better power output, because strength leads to force production that's higher, and then that higher force production should result in a maximal wattage that's higher on the rower, okay? So how do you get better at gain over time? You get stronger, okay? There's some indirect assumptions that we can make, indirect values, you can grasp onto to say, well, what do you mean by getting stronger so that I can do it? First of all, everyone can practice OPEX gain under the presumptions of great technique, right? Go back to the mechanics and limitations exercise, right? If you have great technique, you can still practice this. There's nothing keeping you from practicing it. But if you were to find a little secret that said, well, what's the extra really important stuff that's going to make me better at that test? I will tell you it's to be absolutely strong. So 1.5 times body weight and 3 strict pull-ups is something that shouldn't deter you. It should motivate you to be getting better at OPEX gain on the rower. So if you can't deadlift 1.5 times body weight and you can't do 3 strict pull-ups, you shouldn't then hear that and go, oh, well, there's no way I can practice OPEX gain, or, it's not gonna be, no, that you should say, I should take 2 years, 8 years, 20 years, whatever it takes to get to that expression physically, because that was what I consider a great strength-based support to actually train gain appropriately, okay? So it's not only practicing row repeats that are hard will get you better at this. What gets you better? You get stronger, okay? So you're gonna do rowing and repeats of it, which I'll tell you how to practice that, but you also need to get motivated on getting as strong as possible, okay? For those of you who can do that in deadlifting and you can do that in pull-ups, you're probably gonna be focusing in on repeatability, fine-tuning your practice, maybe picking on little tiny things on technique and skill, and that's all good, right? That's where you need to go, okay? Now, to recap, how you're going to do this, a test, go back and look at testing for gain, pain, and pain, see what that's going to be like. You test it under controlled measures. Intervening training period. What does training mean? Well, we're going to train it under the context of 15 seconds on. That means 15 seconds of work. Visualize that now, right? It's 0 seconds and go. Right? 15 seconds, rest for 145. Now, the reason why I do that is that it works really well for a 2-minute countdown timer, 2-minute repeating. People are in a semi-private session with other people. Let's all work on this clock and do this, okay? Your goal is to do 15 seconds hard, right? 15 seconds very hard. It's not the same effort as your test, right? When you train OPEX gain, you're going to take a little off the top on your repeats of that 15 seconds, okay? So when you test it, it's guns blazing. When you train it, you take a little bit off, right? So we talk about effort down here. We call it a 97%. Why 97? It's not 100. What is 100? 100 is testing. When you train, back off a tiny bit, okay? So when you do, and we I forgot to mention too, when you're doing the training based upon your strength, I just jumped over that, I apologize. 1.5 times bodyweight deadlift, 3 strict pull-ups, and 3 times your pounds in body weight as a goal to shoot for in the wattage. I apologize that I missed out on that, but that's an indirect standard that you could shoot for. Again, it doesn't mean if you're above, you're like a world champion wattage output on the rower. It doesn't mean if you're far below and you've never seen that number, you're like, oh, this is useless, I'm never getting stronger. That should motivate you to get to a standard that will allow you to express gain more effectively, okay? And it's always nice to shoot for some of those values that are just out in front of us that allow some challenges. Now, the reason why I had to back up on that, because I was thinking, well, what are you going to see on the screen when you're going for 15 seconds hard? So if someone scored 280 watts, right? They were working their ass off in the test, like, and they saw 280. That was the max. First, they should go, well, what's my body weight in relation to that? And go, okay, well, I'm at, let's say it was 2 times body weight. Well, that's a nice goal. I need to get to 420. I need to see 420 on the watts. But if they got to 280, if they're going to train this now, this is not testing, they're going to train it, they may see 240 or 230 as the wattage. And the reason why I can't give an exact number, because it's not an exact percentage, it's a perception of effort. It's called 97% because it's just below 100 when you train that. And the very simple equation to determine how many times you do it, to jump into progression now, how often you do it, real simple rule of thumb. Twice a week is an excellent way for progression over a long period of time, for 6 to 8 weeks, right? How many times do I repeat this? The first session you do it twice. Because your goal is to see if you could do 2 repetitive values at the same level, okay? Your amount of repeats that you can do at the same score dictates how many repeats and reps you need to do, okay? So I go 15 seconds. Remember that person I was saying that did 280 in their max? They're going to train at 240 for 15 seconds, right? Or try to get up to 240 as soon as possible. Maintain it. Stop. Rest 145. They're going to do it again. If they can get there and they get up there again, it's like, okay, I did that again. You can do a third. How many of those do you want to do? Again, this comes down to the gray area of function. Like, how many repeats do you want to do? I don't know. How many can you make repeatable? But you want to take into consideration someone's function. They may not have 3 hours to dedicate to doing all those reps, right? They may have 30 minutes. They may not have the repetitive strength, like their brain just may get tired after 3 or 4. So how many should you do? You do more the next time, right? So if that person did 3 repeats that day, they did the 4th repeat. And remember, they're supposed to be at 240 watts, right? And they try again and they're like, man, I couldn't get to that 240 that time. Great, session's over. What did you accomplish? You did 3 repeats. What should you do on the 2nd day of that week? You should try to get to 4 repeats. That's it. It's a simple progression. Now, if you try 4 again and it don't occur, it doesn't happen, great. Come back next week. What do you try again? You try to get to 4. If you get to 4 on that day, what can you do the next day? You try to get to 5. So however many of those you do, it's up to you, because I don't want to say that there is a maximum number and some scientific principles that are just jargon based upon what you should do for that. Do you know what's going to determine how many you do? You come back and retest. Because if you come back and retest after 6 to 8 weeks, and you got up to, let's say, 12 repeats on one day, and this test is no better, what are you going to do now, right? What you may want to do is to get back to a lower volume and try to put more quality reps in each time. See that? But maybe you've done 12 repeats, you come back and you crush your retest. That's fantastic. That means that you probably need that volume to develop that skill and keep that strength going so you can improve on that testing regime, okay? So hope you heard the principles in there. Each set, 15 seconds, 97% effort, 145 complete rest. Do nothing. How many times do you do it? First day, twice. Next day, try 3. What is your goal? Your goal is repeated similar output. Repeated similar output at 97%. Now, if you put that into a working session and you keep trying to get stronger in the interim, right, along with your, let's call it row strength, you're trying to get just absolutely strong, the practice of those intervals plus you trying to get stronger should result in a better retest. So let's remember that avatar we were discussing. Remember, they rode 280 in the 15 seconds, remember? They come back, now they see 300, right? Voila, the 6 to 8 week training period has paid off. They're stronger, their technique is better for that power output. Now they can continue on to a new path of training, trying to increase that wattage to get up to what I would say a nice 3 times body weight in pounds variable, right? As a goal, they're getting closer to 420. They may not reach that for a couple of years. It may take 9 months. I'm not really sure, but that's a nice goal to shoot for. If they get to that, you can say, what do you do then? You try to get more, right? That's a nice balancing out of the power time curve of gain, pain, and sustain. So that's OPEX gain. Recognize you need to be strong in order to gain. Okay? And recognize strength comes in multiple ways. Row strength and technique, as well as absolute strength. What's an absolute strength ideal you could shoot for, which allow you to express this more effectively? 1.5 times body weight deadlift, 3 strict pull-ups. I won't go into the depth of the mechanics around that, but as you can imagine, it does resemble, right? It does resemble the action. So it's somewhat of a nice carryover for upper body strength and scapular stability, upper body strength, and periphery to core in the upper body, as well as force development off the ground, which largely resembles that. Don't forget to test it to figure out what you get in 15 seconds. Remember that training is less than the testing effort, okay? And what's your goal in training repeats? Repeatability. You're gonna see that in all the gain, pain, sustain training. The goal is repeatability. 15 seconds, 97%, 145 rest, do it 2 times, do it 3 times. Do it 4 times, on and on. Take the idea of doing it twice a week. It'll give you a nice quality progression, because I know you're going to do other things as well. And then make sure over time you come back and retest it so you can see if what you put into play there has certainly helped you in the OPEX gain.